is advised.
Hi, welcome to the Liam Scheff Show, UCY TV, Truth Frequency Radio, wherever, fine talk shows are streamed, or where they slip in under the carpet, or under the door unannounced. Let's see what's in the... I haven't done peak oil news in a while. Let's see what's on the agenda for the show. I want to talk about the concept that we create our own reality. I think that that's a good one. AKA, all you need is gas. Talk a little bit about religion and science. I always like to talk about religion versus science because, they're not so different. Talk about the idea that climate is not weather. Yes, I've been on the global warming, no global warming, you're an idiot, you're no global warming, you're a denier blogs, and I've learned something, and I'll share that with you. Let's see. Science is death god worship. Yes, there's something there I want to talk about. I don't know if we'll get to that on today's show. Real science, what is science? I want to talk about that. Engineering versus science or thinking. Here it is. Science fear is better than knowledge. Definitely want to talk about that. And maybe we'll get a little bit into lightning if there's time. I only have 2 hours, and the faster you talk, the faster it goes. And I talk fast sometimes. Show over yet? No? Just started? Okay. Just asking. Just checking in. This is Liam Scheff, author of Official Stories, Truth About Love, Summer of 74, and other light classics. Official Stories is the book, though, that I talk about here. I take on the myths of science. Yes, science lives in a very religious place these days. It has for a while. We should be getting over that, but instead we're getting under it, and it's getting over on us. We have problems because we are a particular kind of species. The most important questions are those that are never asked. We never ask the most important questions. We only ask short-term questions like, how do I put this immediate problem out? How do I put out this immediate fire over here, rather than, why do I live in an area that's so flammable? Why do I live in an area with such drought that's so flammable? Where's the water going? Where's our food going? Where does our food come from? Where does our water come from? Why do we have so little? What is the nature of life? What is the nature of our species? Are we good planners? If you give us $1,000, will we spend it all at once? If you give us 1,000 apples, what will happen to them? Will we hoard them thinking we can keep them forever while most of them rot? There's something wrong with our species and the way that we live. We're at odds with the way that we live. We probably always have been, or at least for a very long time. The most natural position for our species is clearly living pretty close to a slightly modified natural environment that we've modified moderately, slightly, to keep it from totally killing and biting us, but not one that we've, blazed under the bulldozer or the torch. We are a short-term planner. We are ritualistic. When we see exciting things, we make them into stories. When we see unexciting things, we make them into stories. When we don't see anything at all, we make it into a story. We're a storytelling creature. We think our stories are true, and we can't tell the difference between a myth and history, and between what we call science and a myth, anything that has, and what we call technology and science. We're going to talk about that. This show does not come to you free, even though it might seem to. You paid for the computer, you pay for the internet service, and it would be nice if you would pay your humble narrator $1 or $2 in the PayPal link, which is there on the show site. Put $5, $10 into the PayPal piggy bank to help me go to the dentist and spend thousands of dollars on fillings. Yes, that's happening. Yes, that's happening. There's nothing I can do about it. I am a gripper, a gritter, what do you call it? A clencher. I clench my jaw. And I guess I always have. So I've worn my teeth down substantially. Hopefully the dentist says that I can have fillings and not caps, because I can't afford caps. And if I can't have caps, I'll have nothing, which means I'll just wear one of those things that you wear when you go boxing, a mouth guard, all the time. Hi, this is William Soto. So a little money into the PayPal kitty helps pay that $4,000 that I'm expecting to pay very soon in dentist bills plus another. Yay! Because I don't... Notice, why would I have dental insurance? I guess I can go get dental insurance. But not now, because I've talked about it. Hey, Your Honor, he said I didn't have any tooth problems, but you talked about him on air. I was kidding. It's art. It's a show. What are you talking about? I'm fine. Don't I sound fine? Out. You can buy my book, Official Stories. It's there for a song and a half, $11 on Amazon. Free shipping if you give them $100 a year to do that sort of thing. Therefore, it's not free, but if I guess you could buy 50 things a year, it's $2 per item, which isn't bad. In fact, it's nearly free considering what oil should cost. And those are your options. You can also get it delivered what's called wirelessly, which isn't quite true because some of it's wired. Most of the internet is wired. Some of it's wireless, some of it's wired. So why don't they call it wire and wirelessly? Because, why would you say that? Anyway, you can get it delivered on Kindle or whatever the bleep you're reading your Kindle player on. Kindle will read, you can read Kindle on any computer or phone or anything like that, and God help you if you're reading on a phone, but also thank you if you're reading on a phone. A lot of people said, I read your book on my phone, and I feel raped mentally from that statement, and I also appreciate it at the same time. If both are possible, then both have been achieved. Let's see, I got a nice note from somebody there on the Facebook. I'll admit, I'm very quick with the fuck off button on Facebook. If somebody's getting on my nerves and I don't know them and I don't have a reason to tolerate their bullshit, bounce, you're gone. You can find another person to bother with your insanity and if you don't agree with my premise, that's fine. But if you're going to be belligerent about it and have no sense of humor and insult me personally, fuck off. Fuck off. If you want to be funny and say, hey, I don't agree, what about this? And, I thought this might be the case. And by the way, if you just want to be like a friend about it, hey, by the way, that's funny. Yeah, I didn't agree with that. And that makes a little sense. I don't agree with that. But, whatever. It's cool. We're allowed to disagree without going,
Sir, you are wrong, sir. I have read the paper from Sir Stephen Hawking, and it is incorrect your assertion that black holes no longer exist, because what Dr. Stephen Sir Hawking said was that black holes no longer exist in the way that we once speculated that they exist, but they still exist, and please, thank you. Now just die. Die and go kill yourself. Do yourself a favor and go kill yourself.
And if you think that's an exaggeration of the way that the Sci-Tarded bastards talk, that's the way the Sci-Tarded bastards talk. They have become brain damaged from science. Yes, their souls have been eaten as though by a worm, a parasite that has made them, number one, speak that way. And if you think I'm kidding about people telling you to go kill yourself if you don't believe their science, if you don't believe in...
You don't believe in vaccination. You should kill yourself. You should go kill yourself and make the world a better place.
You think I'm joking?
You don't believe in AIDS.
What do you mean I don't believe in AIDS? I think HIV tests aren't valid because the manufacturers tell me that, and I read, so I'm literate. I'm actually literate by the definition, unlike you, science tards.
You, sir, should go kill yourself for not believing what you are told when you're not reading the fine print, which you shouldn't do, because what is your training in, sir?
I've been in debates with Sci-Tards, and they are brain damaged from science. They've gone so deep into the hole of science that they can't think anymore. They don't approve of your critical thinking if it doesn't conform with their training. And their training, by the way, is not in critical thinking. It's in memorization. I've impolitely often called it a sucking and spitting game, but let's just call it memorization. Rote memorization, with a few problems, a few fill-in-the-blanks, and a few essays to make you feel like you've actually learned something. Yes, this is how the sciences work. If you don't believe me, go ahead and find yourself, any of the extraordinarily pro-Darwin pages and enter and say, hey, I'm just a little bit confused about this definition you have of natural selection. Can I ask, what figure do you suppose is doing the selecting, and for what purpose, and on what criteria? Because it seems the criteria are as changeable as the scenario that any particular form of life has itself in. So, for example, if being red is helpful in one scenario, then if something is red, you say that natural selection made it red. But if being red is detrimental in another area, and you say so, and that's why things are yellow, you say natural selection made it so. So that's a very interesting choice. I mean, that's more than a plus minus. You're talking about an intelligence that can discern color, shape, form. I mean, really. I mean, if being small or big or wet or dry or having a hard shell or soft, well, what is it that does the choosing, and how does it work, and in what way, and what's the mechanism by which this transmits into the genome or the subgenome or whatever you think the genome is, or the akashic record, or whatever you think is at work here. What is it that you think? I just have a question. Because if you're saying that nature is doing the selecting, you've just created a God out of nature that is all-powerful and omniscient and can predict the future. Because, Darwinian natural selection only works by virtue of saying that something is useful at a future point. I mean, if there's a flood and you have to evolve fish overnight, Darwinism doesn't work. Everything dies. And then you can say, I guess, that some things that survived that were very different became something else, but how much time do you need for that? And why doesn't the fossil record really show that? I understand the fossil record's highly imperfect. Actually, the fossil record should beg a question of why there are fossils at all, because if you bury most things, they just disintegrate over a short period of time. So a fossil record would very likely indicate cataclysm, very rapid onset of wide-scale change in a way that encased material in, shale. Now, where would you find oil shale on Earth? Well, you find it in veins and beneath the surface. But where else would you find it? You would find it in comets. So if you look up Halley's Comet or other comets, you'll find out that kerogen or if that's not quite right, it's some form of oil shale, some material very similar to shale oil, is there in these bodies. And these bodies are certainly capable of intersecting with the Earth's atmosphere, being electrically disruptive as their electromagnetic bubble bounces against ours, sparks plasma arcs up and down through our atmosphere, and giant plasma arcs carve up the surface of our planet and explode the giant thing carrying all that shale and maybe rain it down on the planet and kill a whole lot of material and encase it in, the stuff that was inside of it, which is shale. And maybe that's something that people should think about. But you'd have to admit that the universe was electrical. The comets were not dirty snowballs, which NASA asserts that they are. And that plasma in space is indeed a charged carrier, and that differential charges do exist in space because of the habit of plasma of forming into double layers and maintaining separate charges. Now, if all of that sounds like wonky nonsense to you, that's okay. We'll come back to it at another point. The point is, don't try to talk to science tards about science. Don't try to talk to the people who've been brain damaged by science. Perfectly intelligent people who've so reduced their field of vision that they have done themselves in. They can no longer think clearly or concretely. They can no longer cross-examine. They can no longer practice inductive reasoning. All they can do is deduct. They follow the deductive path. They take an idea and they infer, really imply, every other idea that they have into and from it. They don't take in new information. So you can know that all science currently relies on deductive thinking, deductive reasoning. Deduction means that I have an idea for something, and my idea is that first there was first there was nothing which exploded. Go with the first one. First there was nothing which exploded. So that's my idea. I have it. It's really prima facie. I shouldn't be able to think of it before proving it. But there it is. It's been proven to me by the textbook that I paid a lot of money for. So there it is. It's scientific truth. Big Bang. It's a scientific truth.
There's more evidence for the Big Bang, sir. I defer your comments for a later time. You just go kill yourself. Just don't do the world a favor. Who are you to ask questions about what I paid a lot of money to learn?
Well, actually, Sci-Tarded, I'm coming at this as an outsider. And in fact, all the big changes in science happened from people who were outsiders. Everybody who ever made a significant contribution to what we call science was an outsider. It begs the question, doesn't it? What is science? But let's continue with the idea. Deduction means that I have an idea or I have a piece of information. I have one piece of information. Is it true? Isn't even something I have to ask. All I have to do is reason from the available information. The available information is the stuff that I paid a lot of money to have. So I have that. And I go forward and I say, well, first there was nothing which exploded. I know that because my science teacher told me, and then he told me why. It was because of redshift. And I didn't ask if there were other good explanations for redshift because I was in class and I had to take the test. Because I had to take the test, I had to memorize all of what we know, and I know there are things that we don't know, but never mind that because I had to pass the course, and the teacher was kind of a bitch. And he was a guy, so that was a problem. Okay, so then I passed that course. All right, science guy, before you became brain damaged from science, you're admitting that you had to memorize a lot of stuff. You can't prove Big Bang, can you? No, I cannot prove Big Bang. I cannot prove it, but it was, demonstrated by... We stand on the shoulders of giants, and I'm satisfied with that answer. Okay, well, I'm not, so you can't prove it. No, I cannot prove it, but we stand on the shoulders of giants. Okay, but can you prove it? No. But we stand on the shoulders of giants. Okay, you can't prove it, so you deduct every other piece of... Now take a look through the telescope. You're taking a little more information. Now, this should be inductive. You should be open to the idea that the first thing that you thought wasn't true. But you can't because, because I memorized it, I know, I paid a lot of money, and I'm trying to get through my PhD candidacy, and, it's really not the right time to be rocking the boat because what I'm trying to do is present another model for our solar system's formation, and it's very controversial, and I'm afraid that if I ask too many questions, I'll lose my PhD sponsor, and then I won't, my proctor, I won't be able to go through. I'll just be dropped from the program. Well, that's terrible. So you're not even allowed to say what you want to say, really. I mean, you have to toe the line. Isn't that a Toto song? Oh, hold the line. You have to hold the line. Love isn't hard. All right, anyway. It's not in the way. Okay. Sorry, I'm just, hold on. It's a Toto moment. It's going on in my head. Tell me. Come on. Hold the line. You don't know hold the line? Just go look it up. It's on YouTube. Music used to be great. You didn't have to be good-looking. In fact, it was better if you were not a good-looking musician because it meant you were a more talented musician because you had more time to learn your art, your instrument, whether you're a vocalist or a guitarist or a drummer or whatever you played, the harpsichord, whatever, klezmer. Whatever you played, you were good at it because you weren't the most popular guy. You were a dorky nerd. Go look at Zeppelin or the Beatles. You think the Beatles are passably cute, but really, look at the Stones, and they're not great musicians. Now you want to see some great musicians. They are not the pretty boys. They're never the pretty boys. Steely Dan, Kansas. Oh, seriously, even ABBA. I know those girls are not bad looking, but compared to today's, what they would do to them today, do you know that if there were an MTV today, there would have been no Led Zeppelin? That should make you just die. It should make you just stop in your tracks and say, there would be no Steely Dan. There would be no Duke Ellington. There would be no Stevie Wonder if there were an MTV when he started. Well, Stevie might have crossed over because he was just too fucking talented and his songs were great. But there wouldn't have been Talking Book and there wouldn't have been Superwoman. There, it just would have been short, shitty pop stuff. Back to sciences. So all you're allowed to do is take your first argument. First, there was nothing which exploded. And then take more information and say, well, we see in outer space, we see things that are boggling our minds and making it difficult to rationalize what we know is true. First, there was nothing which exploded, and what we see in outer space, which doesn't support that concept entirely. So there must be something we're not seeing. What could that be, science dork? Dark matter, perhaps. Something that we can't notice. Something that we can't measure. Isn't it also possible that your first idea is not correct? No, it's not possible that our first idea is not correct. How dare you, sir? Well, there you are. You're getting that voice that I don't like. You're getting that sort of possessed voice. I think it's gotten to you. I think you've become Sci-Tarded. Brain damaged by science. It happens. It happens to the best of them. They don't want to be hated. We're a social creature. We live in little tribes. You get into the science tribe, you go into the classroom. You don't want to be left behind. The teacher's there lecturing you. Nikola Tesla was lectured. He was told in absolute terms that you could not invent a generator or a motor that didn't have brushes touching the metal to transmit the electrical signal. And he said, that's what I vision. I picture a generator in which there are no brushes and the thing just spins. And his teacher told him, that's the equivalent of a perpetual motion machine, and there is no such thing. Well, learn a little about electromagnetic fields, and you'll realize that the field is touching. You don't have to see it visibly touching. I suppose if you sprayed it with iron filings, you'd see it. You'd see the field. But the field was not reckoned, and electromagnetic fields are not really reckoned in NASA's astronomy. Big Bang astronomy doesn't really reckon electromagnetic fields. Now, they'll have to concede magnetism in space, but they never precede it with the word electric. Because once they give you electricity in space, they have to shut down the shop. No joke. Once NASA abandons its not electrical out there concept and really says, okay, we're accepting plasma, we're accepting double layers, we're accepting differential charges in space, we're accepting long currents, Birkeland currents, we're accepting the electrical sun, even though we can't quite explain it, we're accepting that the phenomena that we see from the sun are electrical and electromagnetic. Then we'll understand space. Then maybe we'll rush ahead and understand something about fusion, about coupling very small atoms, atoms, not molecules. So maybe then. But for now, they're not allowed to because they're brain damaged by science. They've become brain damaged and insular. No, I'm not talking about the kind of brain damage that happens if you're deeply poisoned by something, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody except the scientists who are willfully damaging their own ability to think by shutting down the necessary habit in good logic of bringing in new information and being willing to abandon your primary hypothesis should it be overturned by reasonable evidence. Do you want me to say that again? Science is a way of thinking. That should scare you. If you know anything about people, we're willing to think anything. We're able to think about anything. We're able to imagine anything. As Han Solo said, I don't know, I can imagine quite a bit. Too bad he couldn't have imagined a better series of scripts to follow up those first two movies. Yes, anyway. We can imagine whatever we set our minds or not set our minds to. We don't even think about what we imagine. It just pops into us because we're a particular kind of species with a particular kind of imagination, sensual and gigantic and full of lightning and thunder and monsters and sex and personal relationships and the moments that we have in dreams, which make no sense at all. We imagine all the time. Science is a method of thinking that's supposed to winnow out the unwanted thoughts from the process of trying to figure out what's true. But it doesn't do that because it's a process of thinking. And the problem that science advocates...
Are you talking about me again, sir? Just stop it. Just go kill yourself, sir. I'm not listening to you any longer. You, sir, are a denier of science.
Thank you, science dork. Sci-Tarded. That's what you get when you ask them to think critically. And it's shocking. It's shocking to deal with people who behave that way. It's shocking to talk to adults who've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars for an education, who have the intellectual capacity to debate of something like a 6 or 5-year-old. At best a 4th or 3rd grader, probably a 2nd or 3rd grader. It's terrifying because these people pull the cord of something else that we're going to talk about in the second half hour. Let's talk a little more about the process of science. Science should always be inductive. And people listening who don't agree will say, it is inductive. We're always bringing in new stuff. But you're not allowing the model to be overturned. So what you're truly doing is a kind of deduction. You have your set of facts. Any new fact is just an aggravation to your already existing theory. You don't really want anything that overturns your existing hypothesis or theory. It takes generations after the heretics have come and gone, like the Velikovskys or the Duisbergs or the Wakefields have come and gone, or the Linus Paulings, after they've been abused and dismissed. For the next 3 generations later, somebody comes along and says, yes, perhaps it's not quite as we envisioned. It's not entirely different either. We can hold on to both models, old boy. Chip, video. Pip, cheerio. Or chip, have it your way. Perio. So peer review, by the way, speaking of Perios, keeps that line. It holds the line, as Toto, the band, was saying. You have to hold the line. Love isn't always on time. Peer review holds this is a castle wall that holds out new ideas. It doesn't make sure ideas are good. It just holds out new ideas. Sorry, you're not allowed in. No, did you go to Eton and Oxford? I'm sorry. No. No, very good, very good. Yes, go kill yourself, yes. You're not allowed into the sciences unless you have the right pedigree and you mouth the right words. You're just not allowed. It's aristocracy. You don't go into the king's court and say things that you're not supposed to say. I covered that in my book. That's why Shakespeare didn't write Shakespeare. Because the people or persons who wrote that, as Mark Anderson points out in his book, Shakespeare by Another Name, and I point out in my book, Official Stories in Chapter 7, Shakespeare, Not Shakespeare, you don't go ruffle feathers in the aristocratic court, and you don't go ruffle the feathers of the non-feathers, but the emotions of Queen Elizabeth, who can have you, mutilated or murdered at her beck and at her will and her whim. You don't go doing it. So you're in the class, you don't upset the professor. Now you're with your peers in your PhD program. You think that your proctor, your PhD advisor is a total fucking jackass, and you can't believe that you're stuck with this person. You know you're smarter than this person. You know you could zoom ahead if not for the impediment that, every PhD, oh my God, if you could hear the PhDs going, damn it, Liam, you're right. God damn it. They know it. Oh, every once in a while somebody gets along famously, but tell the truth. It's tough. Very often you don't get along with the people who are in charge of your future in academia, and you have to suck and spit, memorize and, get along to go along. As Nikola Tesla was to learn in school, the teacher can hold you back. If you're just smart enough, the teacher can most definitely hold you back. This is Liam Scheff and the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio. Let's see. Science is meant to be one thing, but it is truly another. Science is truly an idea, not a perfectible, kind of religion. I post these, they're called memes, unfortunately, but they're these little word cartoons. Post them on Facebook and sometimes other places. And I list them as science, and then I say something about science, like science, the belief that, the desert can have 7 million year old sand in it, but be 3,000 or 3,700 years old. Go figure. Well, send more money. They're still doing research. Science, the belief that something that we can't test for that doesn't seem to be sexual kills you if we say that it does. If you're black. It's science. In other words, science is a set of ideas with very little control feedback about the crap that is published, but a great deal of control mechanism about new ideas breaching the castle wall. New ideas are not allowed to breach the castle wall, and you're therefore not allowed to be inductive or very cleanly logical. You can only be internally logical given a limited amount of room, which is to say you end up operating in a kind of video game logic. You restrict yourself to movements in a small space, and given that little bit of information that you started with, first there was nothing which exploded. We know HIV causes AIDS. Okay, well then why don't the tests work? Okay, then why did the drugs kill people? We know that vaccines save lives. Okay, well then why do we have these reports in which people are dying from the vaccines? Why do we have a payout fund for people who are killed by vaccines? It should be a problem, but it's not to science. Because science is a way of thinking, and that way of thinking has one primary motivating force, and that motivating force is not truth. Do you want to know what it is? We'll get to it in the next half hour. What is the motivating force of science, and what is its opposite that we mistake for science? On the Liam Scheff Show, on UCY TV Truth Frequency Radio. Yes, it is time to pay the piper. Go check out Official Stories on Amazon.com or Create Space. There's a new Create Space cover, by the way, which is quite nice. I like it. I designed the cover, I designed the double-sided cover, but not the front cover that was given to me by a fellow writer. Very grateful for that. I did some coloring and did some other work with it, but besides that, moved some things around, but besides that, it's typewriter and a lot of crumpled up stuff, chads, and a stack of newspapers, and I think that it aptly represents a process of long-term investigation and a certain amount of frustration of nobody being able to tell the truth once they're in power. So it's Official Story's new cover right there on CreateSpace or Amazon UK. I wish there were an Amazon Australia. That would be fun. You can certainly get the Kindle version in Australia and everywhere else in the world, but not the paperback. You can get the paperback in Europe, England, Scotland, Ireland, and yeah, all throughout Europe, which is nice. And we're coming up on the break. Welcome back to the Liam Scheff Show. We're talking about science and what science actually is. Science is actually something. It is not what it pretends to be. It is not an earnest, long-form attempt to understand what's true. No, it is not that. Science is a conflation of ideas. Number one, science itself is simply a process of thinking, and thinking is always contaminated by belief and psychological limitation, and a kind of religious fundamentalism, and an adhesion to the tribal beliefs and rituals that we grew up with. Science is not separable from those things. Case in point.
But Liam, I totally disagree with you, sir. Sir, I disagree with your commentary and your tone. Number one, science is totally separate from religion, sir, because Big Bang, which is a cosmological concept that there was a null point which became inflamed for a variety of reasons. Perhaps it should see its doctor. Ha ha ha.
Thank you. Go on.
Yes, Big Bang is totally separate from religion. It is not invoking a higher power, a infinitely powerful spaghetti monster in space.
Yes, okay. Now, science dorks, let's ask the question. Who invented Big Bang Theory? Wrong. It was a priest. It was a Belgian priest named Father Georges Lemaitre, who was very clear that he was trying to marry his two hobbies. He wanted to marry biblical Genesis, his belief in a primordial moment, primordial creation, with an atomistic idea, that of a primordial atom. So he took both ideas and very sloppily, clumsily, heat welded them together with his mind. And we've been stuck with the idea ever since. So, of course, it was rejected initially for being so obviously a religious concept. And I'm sure that the science dorks remember reading about that, but they glossed over it in their mind, and they said,
well, yes, that could be a problem, actually. Well, anyway, let's do redshift calculations. That will solve it for me.
And they started doing redshift calculations and soothed their, bothersome curiosity about the idea that what they were actually doing was religion. But they were doing religion. So Big Bang is not separable from religion because it shares the birthplace in the idea of a creation ex nihilo, a creation from nothing, which is not quite even what the Bible postulates, but it's what the Bible is said to postulate. The Bible postulates something else. I should say, never mind the Bible, the Torah, the Talmud. The Bible itself is a movie with a couple of remakes slapped onto the end, reboots. But the early part, the Babylonian, Assyrian creation myths that were abducted by the ancient Hebrews, might have to do with a very different event. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit later in the show if I can remember. Might have to do with a cosmological event, an astronomical event. Might have to do with a climactic event, of an atmospheric event, with something that was visible. Might have to do with great plasma arcs or a change in the way that our planet related to its environment. And it might, I said might, be a remembrance of cataclysm and a change, rather than a literal story about a snake that talks and gives away apples. But Liam, if Jesus didn't tell us the truth, then who did? Well, country person with a slightly exaggerated accent who believes that Jesus was a white guy. We'll get to that. We'll get to it. Okay, back to the science dorks. Science is an idea, and the idea is totally bound to tribal conceptions of identity. So, when the AIDS idea came around,
I'm glad that you brought that up, sir, because AIDS is a scientifically validated and proven disease. There is a retroviral particle which induces a T-cell loss, which is transmitted sexually.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any proof?
Yes.
What is your proof?
Everybody knows that it is true.
Okay. Argument from bandwagon, argument from authority. Do you have any proof? I mean, is there a paper that demonstrates that there is a particle that affects T cells? Hello?
I'm looking.
Okay, I'm waiting. Just waiting.
Yes, right here. HIV is the cause of AIDS.
No. I didn't say a paper that asserted. I said a paper that demonstrated that there was a particular particle that had a particular uniform shape that could be relatively easy seen, for which there would be a titer in the blood, a high-volume titer, that is a number of countable particles in the blood seen to do what you say they are doing. Does that exist?
There are several models. There are several models of how T cell loss perhaps might be achieved, but it is a wily retrovirus.
Oh. What?
It is a wily retrovirus.
Oh. So you don't know?
There are several models, some of which are in complete opposition to each other.
Don't you think that should indicate that the people doing the research don't know what the fuck they're talking about?
How dare you, sir? How dare you use that foul language? You, sir, you should go kill yourself. Why would you use foul language?
What did I say?
Don't entrap me into saying the word that you said.
Okay, science guy. So you don't have a model about how T cells might be lost. Do you know that T cells are lost?
There are anomalies. There are people who never lose T cells.
But you say they have AIDS?
It depends on things and stuff.
Well, you're seeming a little less certain as we go on. Now, is there a test for this thing that you don't know if it affects anything?
Yes, there are HIV tests, and the process is multi-factor. There are many steps.
Okay, so is there an HIV test?
There are many HIV tests.
Is there one HIV test?
There are many.
Is there one?
There are many.
Okay. But is there one that you can take that tells you definitively that you are infected with any particular particle?
There are many.
When you say there are many, you mean I have to use more than one?
Yes, thank you for putting it that way, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Really? So in order to know if I'm HIV positive, I have to use more than one test?
Yes.
But why wouldn't I? I mean, is the second test... You're saying I use a test and it's not the test, it's not any good, and then I have to use another test. Why don't I just use the second test?
Well, you have to use a Bayesian algorithm to determine actually if the test itself is meant to be used on the population in which you're using it.
Did you understand what you just said?
Yes.
Okay. Because what you just said was that the test doesn't matter, and you're profiling people and giving them a piece of shit test. And then you're telling them that you're in charge and you know that you're right because you're using 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them. Hello?
I retract my statement that you are a gentleman and a scholar. Go kill yourself. Yeah! I don't like you anymore, Liam Scheff, liar sheaf, your foul language.
I'm sorry, science guy. I'm really sorry. I'm just trying to sort it out. Science is a way of thinking, and AIDS, by the way, conforms to our pre-existing ideas about what? Science conforms to our pre-existing ideas about homosexuals. That if a gay man is to die or get sick for any reason, it has to do with sex. It conforms to our pre-existing idea about Africans, that their sex is debased, debauched, and unchristian. Probably they're not as monogamous as we Westerners. Let's be honest, people. And we're hardly a monogamous nation. What was that pastor's name? Ted something? It was an accident that he was sucking cock. It was an accident. Jesus, save me. Save me from the cock that I can't stop thinking about. Yeah, okay. We're not a very monogamous nation. we're a very sexual species. We think about sex often, regularly, and as natural habit. We think about sex. We're like bonobos in that way. We think about sex. Doesn't mean you have to have it, but we think about it. We get turned on. The geniuses in the Catholic Church learned a long time ago that they could manage our entire Western population by telling us to feel ashamed of thinking about sex. Every time we think about something that we have no control thinking about, that is natural for our species to think about, we feel that we are going to die in hell, and everyone we know is going to hate us, and we're going to suffer for all eternity. Now that is some clever fucking programming. Kudos. Congratulations, Catholic Church. Man, you Roman Catholics, having your cake and fucking us too. But we'll cover that on another show. So you can see that AIDS lives right in that hand-in-glove space. AIDS lives right where the old Roman Catholic Church made us feel awful for thinking about sex. AIDS does the same thing medically, scientifically. And what about the people who got sick? Well, if you're a gay guy and you're alone and you don't have family and you're isolated and you've been kicked out of your own hometown by hook or by crook, or by ostracism or by emotional blackmail, and you run to the big cities and you move into some shit apartment in the gay ghetto where you can live and get a job, and all your other gay friends are young gay men, and you're driven by testosterone, and you have a lot of sex and a lot of hookups, then you're going to get a lot of STDs. And to contend with a lot of STDs, you're going to take a lot of antibiotics, and after 4 or 5 years, your guts are going to fall apart. Your liver is going to rebel. You're going to be ashen and gray-faced and falling apart. Then you're going to go for more antibiotics, and you're going to take Cipro and Bactrim, and you're going to totally kill yourself, and then you're going to go to the hospital, and you're going to be not able to heal yourself because you have no mitochondria functioning. Your gut lining is paper mache Swiss cheese, and the doctor is going to wonder what the mysterious disease is that you got. It must be a virus. You've been putting benzene into your terrible carcinogen into your intestines and bloodstream by putting it into the lubricants that you use in your anus at times or on your penis. You are going to have all kinds of inhalant drugs that you use for fun to maintain your erection and your orgasm and to lubricate, to keep your anus from, to keep it loose while you're having sex. If you're a bottom, if you're a receiver, you're going to have cancer from that problem too. You're going to have Kaposi sarcoma from poppers. And you're going to go into the hospital in 1981 or 2 or 3, and they're going to say, wow, what a mystery. And somebody's going to come along and say, no, it's related to the lifestyle. And somebody's going to say, that's racist. I mean, anti-whatever. It's homophobic. Say, I'm not homophobic, but they've been putting benzene into their fucking bloodstream and huffing nitrite, amyl nitrite, butyl nitrite. Nitrate, inhalants. You've been huffing carcinogens. You've been huffing rush and, all the other terrible poppers that cause, Kaposi sarcoma. It was actually insiders in the NIH who said, we think the poppers are causing the Kaposi sarcoma, so let's stop worrying about that. And if you're inhaling this stuff, you're going to destroy your lungs, so we don't have to worry about the very rare fungal infections of the lungs. That's not a mystery. They don't have any functioning. They've destroyed their lungs by inhaling poppers. And as far as the lymphoma goes, the blood cancer as well, they're putting carcinogenic material into their bloodstream. So, mystery solved. By the way, let's then go tell everybody in Africa who doesn't have clean drinking water that they have the same disease and accuse them of having a sex disease and then say it's a sex disease. And then everybody in the West says, we knew it. Right after apartheid, by the way, right after apartheid ended, the Western world went over to Africa and said, sorry, you got to stay in your little bantustan there because you can't come in and live with us. You got sex disease. You got a sex disease that we don't have. We're such a predictable species. So science works along religious pathways. In AIDS, it worked along the Old Testament Levitical prohibition against being other than Jewish, which became other than Christian, which became other than white, and then it became, and then it was the prohibition against, and then it was Big Bang, which is biblical Genesis misunderstood. So science is not free of religion. Science is a thought form that adheres to a tribal mechanism. Science can only go so far as the tribal mind will allow. There are emotional components to the way that scientific hypotheses or theories are framed. Big Bang is comforting because it's a beginning and it gives us a middle and an end, if you believe the big crunch or the cool down period that's postulated to happen after the period of normalcy that apparently we're in. None of these are true. There was no Big Bang. There will be no big crunch. We live in an electromagnetic universe. This is now becoming so clear to NASA that they're beginning to lose their minds. They're beginning, in fact, to have to change a number of things. And in the past decade or so, they've had to begin the inclusion of magnetic, they don't call them electromagnetic, features in outer space. They've even begun to honor a guy named Immanuel Velikovsky without naming him, because the new model of the solar system is, well, almost pure Velikovsky. And I'll handle that in the second hour of the show. But you can know that things change, but they never tell you why they're changing them. And they never honor the people the heretics who came along and said, no, you're not making sense. Your idea is not a solid idea. Your idea of a galaxy, of a solar system created out of a Big Bang, accumulated out of a gassy disk that for no reason that anybody can fathom rotated and formed a sun and separate planets in their current orbits. It doesn't have anything to do with our solar system, in which all of our planets have different tilts. They tilt differently, as though they were born from different events or came from different places and then were kind of a hodgepodge delivered into this sector of the galaxy and collected around our current sun. That is what our solar system looks like, and guys like Walt Thornhill have been making this case for a long time. There are probably others who have made the case, but Walt Thornhill is, I think, the guy, and Walt Thornhill admits that he follows Michael Faraday and Ralph Jurgens and Hannes Alphen, and he's not somebody who comes along and says he invented the world, but he's a humble genius, and you should look him up. He's in my book, Chapter 9. He's in his own book, in his, I think it's called Be Like a Universe. But you can go on his webpage and read 100 or so articles that will change the way that you look at science if listening to this show hasn't done it already. Science is then followed from the thinking part, in which it tries to, really it's just deduction. Well, we know what we think, now let's try to fit everything into it. We know what we think, we have the container, we have to put everything into the container. We know what's at the top of the page, everything has to conform to that model. So nothing can really challenge Big Bang, and if it does, it has to be so weird that we really can't prove it. All we can do is keep funding it, because we'll never come up with anything. So dark matter is fine. Black holes are fine, because you can't prove them, they don't exist. You can't measure something that's not there, and dark energy is also fine because you can't measure something that's not there. So you keep everybody hopping around doing nothing, trying to improve their mathematical models about what could be. They might as well be playing a Spider-Man video game for all it's worth, as real as it is. That's the same level of reality. It's not real. It exists on a screen, and you can think that you're in New York or Manhattan swinging around, but you're not. You're actually not. Unless you're Peter Parker, of course. So, science is followed science follows the thought process, which is mostly deductive after framing the hypothesis artificially along what are usually tribal considerations. You don't really frame a big hypothesis about a major science like a disease. Sex disease is all Leviticus, and creation myths are Big Bang. What are some of our other things? Well, then you have to say, well, Liam, my iPhone doesn't work on the creation of on biblical creation. My iPhone doesn't work on the process of Leviticus. And I would say, you know what, you're right, and that's the point. That's the second half of what makes science. And this, in fact, is what people think science is, but it's not. You're talking about a technique. You're talking about a word that I will now use, and I hope you will understand, a word called engineering. You're talking about engineering. And engineering is quite real. Engineering is its own brand of tool making. It's an advanced position of tool making. You can engineer almost anything. It doesn't have to have a practical purpose. So go into the toy store, go into the Walmart or the whatever the toy store is, Toys R Us, and go to the toy section. Well, you understand what I'm saying. And look at all these plastic pieces, the Batman fighter planes and the Star Wars Lego things, all of these have been engineered, very carefully, by the way, to fit together, to form a particular kind of model, or if there's electrical wiring in there, that was engineered to make a sound or make the Chewbacca go or whatever. These are engineered. These have science in them, what we would call science. Well, the only real science in them is that of needing to sell a product, because they're certainly not useful. They serve no actual practical application. What they are instead is diversionary, but they need to be engineered to function. I mean, you can't have a giant Lego set or an erector set, if they still make those, or a Barbie dream house unless it has been engineered. The parts have been molded, molded, and cast. They have been designed to fit together, to work together, so that there are no particularly sharp edges, so that pieces that are meant to interlock do, so that certain things can fit inside of certain things, so that the wiring works and isn't exposed, so that a light that goes on is meant to go on does when a button is pressed, so that a screen or a speaker, an embedded speaker functions. There is rather advanced engineering in most children's toys these days. Even dolls that are plastic and die-cast have significant amounts of engineering in them, from the polymers, the plastics, the resins, and the paints that are used to shape these things in the way that they are, then to put them in paper, seal them in a particular kind of little bubble that has art all over it. There's engineering in here. It's not art, it's engineering. There was maybe some artistry at some point in the design, but that's separate from the engineering of the thing. The thing has to be mass-produced, and it has to be made relatively safe for purposes of the American public. So, engineering can have no purpose at all, or it can make bridges, or it can make a vaccine cylinder, a syringe, or a needle. Engineering can go into the process of making the vaccine itself. You have to engineer the thing. It's a sloppy process. I wouldn't call it very scientific. It's more like a witch's brew, but you can do it. And you mix it together and you siphon out, you spin it through whatever gradients you spin it through and mix it with whatever solvents and stabilizers and metals that you mix them with. You weigh them the way that you do, and this is all a process of building machines that can do these little functions. It's all engineering. And this is what people think of when they say science. Engineering is dazzling. Your iPhone is dazzling. Your car should be dazzling to you. The engine block should be amazing to you. It's not. You don't even think about it because you're so used to it, but it should be amazing. The roads that we drive on, the traffic lights that are timed, all of this is engineering. The umbrella that you carry in the rain has been engineered to work. This is engineering. Everything, from the tiles in our house to the paint on the walls to the plastic bags that we get our groceries in, are engineered. They have practical, applicable measuring and cutting, tool making applied to them. The engineering may be intensely complex, vastly hierarchical in form and function, with many overlapping parts, some redundancies, some non-redundancies. When people say science, they think that what they're saying is engineering, because engineering very often has to be precise, or often has to be very precise. People think that science is precise. Now, do you see what just happened? That's the most important thing you can understand. The thinking that makes the thing, the impetus for the thing, can be utter bullshit. There's no need for another Star Wars doll. There's no need for another vaccine. There's no need for a new model car. We're fine with the ones that we have. We already have engine types that we're not building because they're too efficient. There's no need for there's no need for most things, but the market demands novelty. The market demands novelty, you see. And so we seek it. Our religion in America is selling and buying. Our religion is Wall Street. Our primary religion is oil and the dollar. There must be a forward momentum in the creation of objects and things. So the market demands that. Science must obey the market. Science must be creating novel objects and selling them. Real science would have no interest in selling vaccines. Real science would be interested in how the immune system works. It has real, a true adherence to an idea of just trying to understand, if we call that science. And I think we've already admitted that's not what it is. But if you simply wanted to understand something, or even be useful, You wouldn't necessarily impose any particular way of being on people, except maybe you'd study immunology. Sanitation would be very important to you. But our religion demands, and our religion is capitalism, oil, and dollars, demands that we're always having new products. Now, the technique of making things is so overwhelmingly fascinating and dazzling and beyond the layman's, the non-expert's comprehension. I mean, try to build an iPhone. You can't do it. Try to construct these little silica parts. You need a very expensive laboratory to fashion these little parts. This is a technique for building. So there are techniques within techniques within techniques. We have multi-layered techniques for building, and it's dazzling. And we can't imagine that it's not true. We can't imagine that we would build something then that wouldn't be essentially true. If it works, then the science behind it, we reason imperfectly, falsely, is also true. So because there are vaccines, is enough reason for most people to think that vaccines are good, because they've been engineered. And we can't imagine that engineering, as complex as it is, as tightly constructed as objects have to be to work, many objects, we can't imagine that they can simply be made for false purposes. But they can be made for rationale. The science of it can be utter bullshit, and the technique can be excellent. Feel the penny drop? That's not a small idea. That's maybe the most significant idea that you could forward to a scientist. The rationale can be utter bullshit, and the technique can be dazzling. The atomic bomb, the engineering of pesticides, glyphosate, genetic engineering, the technique can be dazzling. The rationale can be totally flawed, religious, tribal, short-sighted, fear-based, fundamentalist. This is Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV. I think that gave you something to chew on. Even you, science dork. Shut up! Okay. I'm not going to shut up, but we are going to go to break. My jaw definitely hurts. Seeing the dentist tomorrow. Not excited, but excited. Not excited, but hopeful. Try not to be too hopeful. Money in pocket. Cash in pocket. Brass in pocket. Ready to spend. Your ideas certainly welcome. I've seen the Weston Price ideas. I'm not going to start eating hearts and hope that my teeth magically decide to grow back. But I am open to your thoughtful suggestions. You put $1 into the PayPal kitty to keep this fine work of independent science journalism coming your way. Thanks for listening. This has been the first hour of the Liam Scheff Show. In the second hour, we're going to talk about that. I've got the other list of topics about the sciences, fear-based science, religion-based science. I think that we covered a very important idea, though, and I don't want to just skip over it. It's very important to understand that the technique of a science can be dazzling, but the rationale can be utterly bullshit. And if you don't realize that, you're always going to... When people say, it's science, you say, no. The science is the flawed idea. The technology is pretty good. The technology is pretty good, we'll give you that. The technique, the tool making is impressive. Not for vaccines, by the way. I mean, syringes might be impressive, little glass modules or plastic modules, but the stuff inside of that is a bitch's brew. And you shouldn't inject that into any living thing. But the techniques of other sciences can be very impressive. A lot of NASA's techniques are impressive, but their rationale for understanding outer space is completely flawed. The rationale can be flawed, and the technique can be impressive. Those are not contradictions. And that, at heart, at root, at center and at base, is what's wrong with science. Science doesn't understand that it's a thought process, deviously influenced by old tribal thoughts, deviously influenced by tribal affiliation and fraternities of go along to get along. It's Liam Scheff Show. Please support independent journalism by putting a couple dollars into PayPal. Thank you very much. We'll see you in just a couple of minutes. Hi, welcome back to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio. Not quite commercial free. I'm the commercial. Yes, you have to support me, your humble narrator, as he goes through the world of dentistry. Yes, I'm headed back to the dentist. I hadn't been to a dentist for a cleaning or any other. There's a joke in there. Any other Chinese city, cooking, cleaning. She thought there were cities in China. It's an old joke. It's not a good joke. Anyway, I hadn't been to a dentist for a cleaning for probably about 20 years. And I know that sounds amazing, but I guess I can then stand and, act as a bellwether, canary in a coal mine. I can tell you what happens after 20 years. Well, your teeth don't become entirely covered with tartar like some Monty Python extra from Meaning of Life or Life of Brian. You don't have like 10 inches of tartar because you brush every day. You brush most of it off, but there is a kind of a layer that builds up that you scratch at with your finger and sort of pull it off, and it's gunk. And it does affect bone. It does affect bone. Mostly, though, it affects your gum line. It starts to eat away at the tooth. So if I had been going to the dentist regularly, I would have more gum and more tooth. So I suppose I have to say go to the dentist once a year. At least once every 2 years. Go to the dentist once a year and get a cleaning. Or get one of those Oral-B super toothbrushes, that scrubs everything off your tooth except your tooth, hopefully. Or those sonic care things that vibrates faster than, well, I don't know, a rabbit. Rabbit joke, for those in the know. You could do a variety of things to keep your teeth clean. I recommend oil pulling. A dental hygienist that I'm now seeing, not that way, just seeing for money. Not that way. Jesus. No. Paying. All right, no, I can't get out of it now. Anyway, the dental hygienist that I'm seeing, damn it, is standing by. She's no new age girl, but she's standing by the oil pulling thing. So I said, you think this works? She said, yes, I had a patient, blah, blah, blah. She didn't say blah, blah, blah. She actually filled it in. That's, I don't know, that's a colloquialism for other stuff here. Yada, 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 as the Jews used to say on television. Anyway, I haven't been to the dentist for a very long time. Then last year I broke down and got a teeth cleaning because I was worried about some things. What I really needed was a mouth guard, and I didn't get it. I had a mouth guard about 15 years ago. Guess what I didn't use? I just didn't want it. Why? Because I'm Mr. Au Natural. I didn't want plastic in my mouth at night. Now I've lost 30% of my molars. Why? From clenching my teeth. Yay! 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 Yes, we get to age and fall apart. It is one of the great exciting things that happens to you in life. And then you look at the young people running around with their loud, bad, synthetic music, their hormones raging, and you say, kid, brush your fucking teeth, you little bastards, with all your good hair and no pulled shoulder, you little fuckers. Take good care of yourself. But you laugh at them because they're eating contaminated, genetically modified Fukushima burger. And you only had non-genetically modified, non-Fukushima burger. So there you are. Veganism is taking a bit of a... I've never been staunch... I've very rarely been staunchly vegan. I just never really felt like there was... vegan I understood was more of a political stand against factory farming, and I always accepted it as such. But I don't like eating animal flesh. I just don't like it. And I'll exclude fish from that. I'll eat a little bit of fish if it's offered to me, and I think that it comes from a sane ocean, and I don't know where that is. And in terms of fish, I'd rather eat a small fish than a large fish, and something that didn't have a long lifespan, et cetera, et cetera. Or which is the same thing as yada, 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 or so on and so forth. It means the other stuff here, like a small ocean and doesn't grow very large, so it doesn't contain as many, so it doesn't accrue as many contaminants. Okay, so veganism, though, has been dying a slow and hard death in my life. I hate eating cows. I'm not going to start eating cows. I hate eating chicken. Chicken smells like Nazi death camp to me, and they're raised like Nazi concentration camp. Chicken is disgusting. It smells bad. It's not even good for you. There's nothing really valuable about it. It's whatever. It's just the totally average, beta. It's the delta, if we're talking Huxley. It's the delta of the animal food that you can eat. Pig is disgusting to eat. It's full of parasites. It's disgusting to eat pig. Fish, showing my Japanese heritage here. showing my Japanese heritage here, I think that fish is probably the ideal animal food to eat. Small fish are better than large fish. They don't grow, they have very small skeletons, they grow small, you can boil them and boil the skeleton down to almost a partial goo and get all the good loving calcium and magnesium and minerals out of that, and I suppose I'm going to have to start doing that. I've never claimed to be a hardcore vegan. I've always claimed to be a hardcore low on the food chainist, and I'm having to live up to that. I have to take bone broth, but I'm not going to take large animal bone broth. I don't see the purpose of it. Large animals would have been harder to hunt in the ancient world. We would have been eating small things like little fish, frogs, and lizards. So I'm right there where I said I would be. I'm not being a hypocrite. I don't berate people for not being vegan. I just think that the Weston Price people are really Midwesterners who didn't want to give up the diet. They make a couple of good points, and then they invalidate all of them by saying that grain is the greatest enemy, but you can eat as much hog anus as you can get your teeth around. Okay, good look, and tell me how the leadership of the Weston A. Price group is looking, what their weight is, just tell me about their general health, and I'll accept that, I'm probably correct. On the other hand, veganism, with its idealistic take that all life doesn't take life, misses some of the point. It's an imperfect world. We're going to kill some things anyway. No vegan has ever been a vegan because there are insects in everything that you eat that's ground up or picked from the field. You're always eating insects. You can't get around it. And if you decide at some point that you're going to have to take in some skeletal system from something because you need the extra, you want the extra assimilable calcium, you better go low on the food chain, low on the food chain. I suppose some insects are probably calcium accruers. I know seaweed is a calcium accruer. And I think seaweed is an excellent choice. But, I won't touch Pacific seaweed anymore. Call me crazy. I know hormesis should tell us that radiation is good for us. At least that's what the think tanks want us to believe. Anyway, there's just no perfect. You just slowly give up on perfect, and hopefully you don't abandon your values all the way. I don't like eating large animals. I don't like causing suffering. Little fish, I'm probably going to be raising little fish. I'm going to be taking an aquaponics course. I'm going to be getting trained and certified in that, so I can build fish tanks for people to grow broccoli, vegetables, greens, mustard, sunflower, whatever, everything, everything. You can grow anything in an aquaponics thing except you can't grow good potatoes. Not really. Turnips. But what you can do, let's change topics for a second. I'll get back to teeth and science. What you can do with an aquaponics tank. Aquaponics is a fish tank whose shit you take to fertilize your plants. And you put the plants, instead of in soil, you put them in clay pellets or something like that. And you can put worms in the clay pellets, and they'll digest what comes out of the fish stuff. And, it's a very nutrient-dense, nutrient-rich system. It's a very efficient system for holding on to water and not wasting a lot of it. It requires electricity or a monkey on a bicycle to keep the shit pumping all the time, keep stuff pumping all the time. So it is not a low energy input in the sense that you need electricity, but if you get one of those new those new windmills that doesn't spin, the kind that's being developed in Tunisia that moves in the shape of a Carthaginian sail. It sort of bounces up, down, left, and right. It moves in kind of a corkscrew pattern. The whole sail moves, so the whole collector moves rather than just the blades. It's kind of interesting. You can generate electricity for your hydroponics and have enough left over to light your small home your tiny house before the city of Los Angeles tears it down, which they will do to you. That's in the headlines too. So teeth, yes, teeth, science. Let's finish hour one. A way that we can understand science is that there's an idea. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be bad. It's an idea. It can be crazy. It can be religious. You then build a technique around it. You do technology. You do tool making around it. Tool making is what we are. The tool making can be it can be incredible. The tool making can be mind-boggling. Look at the movies that we go to. Look at the special effects in the movies that we go to. They are astounding. It is astounding to watch these things, and we sit there and we say, well, we know it's not quite real, but shit, that's entertaining. Wow, that's neat to watch. Well, that's technology at work. You could even call it science, but it's truly technology at work. You even know that it's technology. You have big machines. You have to say then it's science. So science makes Iron Man, but Iron Man's not real. And that is the bottom line. That's how science works. Technology can be fucking amazing. It can be out fucking standing. It can be incredible. You can blow your mind with technology. Your iPhone can blow your mind, and you can sit there and look at it and look at images of people from around the world or whatever you're looking at, or Googling, giggling, whatever, and you can look at yourself and you can take pictures and send them to people at light speed just about. Amazing. Amazing. And then you play Angry Birds. You look at yourself narcissistically and you send pictures through an app that makes you look like you're kissing somebody's kid. I don't know. Pierce Brosnan. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why. I know why. Because one of the first big CGI, well, it wasn't the first big CGI. I remember a CGI movie. It was called Dante's Peak, right? And Pierce Brosnan, when he was taking a break from Inspector Clouseau, whatever the fuck he was, 007. And he's in this movie called Dante's Peak with Terminator girl, Linda Hamilton, right? So I don't know why I remember this. And the special effects are all CGI, except for, a couple in-room props. So none of it looks quite real, but it's all terrifying. Like, everybody's dying, and the movie kills everybody. It's not one of those sort of movies that pussyfoots around with who they're going to kill. It's not like these new stupid Marvel movies that acts like everybody gets saved at the end. I'm so sick of these movies. I'm sick of them. They're so dishonest, and they don't teach people anything. If you're going to show a movie and it's meant to be something that teaches people a lesson, then have it teach people a lesson. Not everybody lives at the end, and you don't just kill one guy so he comes back on the television series, and then you don't tell us in advance who we're going to kill, and then make a robot of him. Oh, just fuck off, Marvel. Go fucking kill yourself. Anyway, call back, hour 1. Teeth, science. Science, the technology can be remarkable, and you can make Pierce Brosnan look like he's kissing Linda Hamilton under a volcano. It's amazing stuff, but it can serve no purpose at all. It can be for the purpose of eugenics. It can be for the purpose of killing people slowly. With your song, their song, it could be for the purpose of shooting electromagnetic beams into the sky to see what happens. It can be for the purpose of spraying aluminum and barium in the air to make us all so smart. I feel a lot smarter since they started spraying stuff in the sky, yeah. I feel a lot better. My nervous system's feeling a little strange, but, it's fine. I feel a lot better since Chemtrail Nation began. I know, they're contrails. Fuck off! I know what a contrail is. Dick faces. Anyway, Dick Faces of America Unite. That's just a call out to the dick faces to unite and get together behind the idea that contrails are the same thing as chemtrails, you fucktards. You don't think we can tell the difference, really? You sit there and you watch airplanes go across the sky, then you watch them begin to spray. And I don't mean make a light contrail that's shaped like a jet path. I mean spray. And then that thing stays around for the next 8 hours, slowly descending to the planet, getting wider and wider and then dissipating. Fuck off. Fuck off. Science can be for that purpose. The technology is pretty amazing. Airplanes, aerosolizing metals, it's all pretty amazing. What's the purpose? The purpose can be psychotic. I think that's a really important lesson to take the next time you have to debate a Sci-Tarded about science. They have made themselves brain damaged by believing in the absolute validity of science. What they should say is that technology is amazing, but the rationale is ludicrous. Ludicrous. Now, speaking of ludicrous, I am going to be depositing thousands of dollars into my jaw, into my teeth, because I have worn them down. I didn't go to the dentist for 20 years. I have compressed my jaw in on itself for a long, long, long time. I am not happy about what I have done. But I have done it. I have done it. I have done it. I have done it, I say. I have done it. And there's nothing I can do about it. So I go to the dentist, and I go for the cleaning. And the doctor is freaking me out a little. She's looking, and she's saying, O over B, B over 3, 3, 4, 2. She's just all this stuff in dentist language, code. And then, the hygienists, who are always the nice ones, come in and talk to you and make you feel a little bit better about the thousands of dollars that you're spending, because why would you have insurance? Yeah. And you can't just get insurance because there's a waiting period, because they learned that trick already. I'm perfectly fine. Give me insurance. Oh, whoops. I need 8 fillings and $2,000, $1,500 worth of cleaning. I don't know how that happened. So they've all learned their lesson. They know. Not falling for that one again. Gee. So why would I have insurance? So it's all coming out of blood. Just got to go give blood. You know what? I just got to give blood. What is it? $20 a pint. I'm going to go give blood and give blood and give blood and give blood. Let's see, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So that's 5. Hey, I'm almost there. Times 5 times 10. And that would be 5 times 10. So 50 would get me to my first 1,000. I got this covered. Should try some sperm donation. What do they get for that? $5. Oh, God. Fuckity fuck. So for the $7,000 I'm going to spend, factor that over 20 years, and I really should have gone to the dentist. There's no way around it. I don't care if you budget in at $300 or so a year. I should have gone $300 a year over 20 years, $6,000, right? Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even have spent that just for a cleaning. Fargan Ice Hole, Son of Beach. Well, I learned that lesson. Same deal. Don't go to the dentist every 20 years. Go every year. Go every year and get a cleaning. Get a cleaning. Make sure they're mercury-free. Don't get fillings unless they're mercury-free. Do oil pulling. Take occasional bone broths. Go low on the food chain with your bone broth, for God's sake. You don't need to kill giant cows to get a little calcium, you Weston Price freakazoids. Come on. Live by your motto. I mean, if you're really going to live like islanders, live low on the food chain, for Christ's sake. If you're going to eat big animals, live like native peoples did and hunt them once in a while during a season. Don't hunt them into extinction, and don't think that factory farmed cattle raising is the equivalent. Just please, come on, give me a break. We're close to getting on the same page here. Close. So $7,000 later, I'll have handful of big giant fillings filling the back of my mouth, and they say there are a couple cavities. They're very small, like pinpricks. They say they have to drill in and make sure they're not bigger, but they're superficial and small. And I think that those are just from the damage I've done from grinding, because they're on the grinding surfaces in the back. Now, why do I clench my jaw? When I was younger, I thought it was sexual frustration. Then I started having sex, and I still clenched my jaw. Then I thought it was the girl I was with, and so I broke up with her. And then I thought it was sexual frustration. And then I got on and on and on we go. There was always a reason, And then I was up too late at night. Where it wasn't sexual frustration. No matter how much sex I had, my girlfriend said, "You tighten your jaw at night." And it didn't matter how many times I consternated, rhymes with consternated. It didn't relax. Sometimes my jaw would get tense. And if I, of course, stayed up at night studying, which is me, stay up late at night, you know what, I'm just going to read one more page. 3 hours later. 3 fucking hours later, I'm 2 books in, 60 web pages are open. That's me. Hello. I mean, how do you think, no offense, but you don't get to know so fucking, okay, anyway. It hurts. It hurts the brain and it hurts the teeth. You have to read and read and read and read, and you never stop. Just never stop. You're never done learning if you're going to be somebody who thinks that you have a responsibility to try to find out what's true before you transmit it. Not that I don't make mistakes. And the other day, by the way, on the show, which was not my best show, I was exhausted. I'd been clenching my jaw, and I said that Michael Faraday was Scottish. He's English. James Clerk Maxwell was Scottish, and I totally confused them both. Michael Faraday had very little education. He was a bookbinder, and he was a genius. I said that he didn't publish paper. I meant that he didn't publish any peer-reviewed papers, but I misspoke. So, hello, welcome to my world. And Michael Faraday is a very, very interesting figure to look up in the sciences, because he didn't seek approval, He really did experiment. He was known as the great experimenter. He wasn't somebody who waited around to see if it was okay for him to go forward. Peer review wouldn't have been something that necessarily would have been understood. You might have been, at that point in history, you would have been entered in the 1800s, you would have been entered into something like a guild, an association. You would have been welcomed into some club at some point, but for the most part, you just did your thing, and then you wrote it up. You might have pamphleted it. Word might have gotten around. You might have given a demonstration to the lords and ladies. And they said, "Oh, have you seen Faraday's machine? It generates electricity through a brushing mechanism on a spindle. He calls it a homopolar motor." Oh, fuck. God, that's a lot of money. Fuckity fuck. Fuck, 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 fuck. In defense of science, let me say, in defense of technique and technology, let me read this article to you. Let me see if I have this open. I really like this story. Irvine, California, not far from me. University of California, Irvine researchers have invented a nanowire, very small wire-based battery material. Now, how are nanowires made? Through very expensive laboratory equipment. Don't try this at home. Material that can be recharged. In other words, it's expensive to make this shit. That can be recharged hundreds of thousands of fucking times. One more time. Researchers have invented nanowire-based battery material that can be recharged hundreds of thousands of times. Now, for those of you who say that I'm truly anti-science, did you hear me just get excited? Did you feel my little science erection just go 100,000 times for a battery? Scientists, let's call them technicians, have long sought, because we've now identified that a scientist can believe in the Big Bang, but an engineer can't. An engineer just makes shit. So engineers have long sought to use nanowires and batteries. Scientists can go fuck themselves. Engineers, the people who make the stuff, the people who design the things, the scientists are the guys who tell them what to make, and they may be goddamn wrong. They may be wrong entirely. They may be right. They may be good researchers. The better scientists are the ones who tend to be the engineers themselves. You know, they don't just hand it off to somebody. Or they're so connected to people that they never turn into Enrico Fermi and don't worry about blowing the atmosphere off the planet because they're psychopaths. Psychopaths. Some of them have hearts. Most of them are a little bit lost in Asperger land of some sort or another, and they've just lost touch. They've lost touch. Technicians, engineers have long sought to use nanowires and batteries thousands of times thinner than the human hair. Whew, fascinating. Jim, it's fascinating. They're highly conductive and feature a large surface area for the storage and transfer of electrons. However, these filaments are extremely fragile and don't hold up well to repeated discharging and recharging, or cycling, which is what batteries require. In a typical lithium-ion battery, they expand and grow brittle. That was like a cougar or panther, which leads to cracking. University of California researchers have solved this problem. Check this shit out. This is cool. By coating a gold, talking expensive, nanowire, talking expensive, in a manganese dioxide shell, expensive, not as expensive, and encasing the assembly in an electrolyte, wow, made of a plexiglass-like gel. Okay. So they're coating the thing in something that can still transmit. Hold on. Let me see if I can understand this a little bit better. Let me get the original paper. Hold on. All right. Opening the original paper. Okay, electrolyte, a liquid or gel that contains ions, so it can transfer electricity, and can be decomposed by electrolysis. For example, that present in a battery. Usually electrolytes. Physiology, the ionized or ionizable constituents of living cell, blood, or other organic matter. Yes, it's an electric universe. Organic mid-19th century from electro, Greek lutos, from luion, loosen, to loosen the electrodes. Let's see what we've got here. 100K cycles and beyond. I mean, imagine that. 100,000 cycles and beyond. So don't say I've never gotten excited about technology. This is genuinely exciting. It really is, and I'll tell you why. You already know why. And yet, there will be caveats. 100,000 cycles and beyond. Extraordinary cycle stability for magnesium dioxide to oxygen, nanowires imparted by a gel electrolyte. We demonstrate reversible cycle stability for up to 200,000 cycles. Hold on, I got it at the table. Fuck, that's outstanding. That's amazing. Wow. 200,000 cycles with a 94 to 96% average Coulombic, that's the Coulomb's law. It's a French guy, and anyway, let's just call it 94%, 96 average efficiency for the manganese nanowire capacitors operating across a 1.2 volt voltage window in a polymethyl methylcrylate gel electrolyte. Well, that certainly sounds oil-based. The nanowires investigated here have gold, Au, manganese, oxygen core shell architecture, in which a central gold nanowire current collector is surrounded by an electrodeposited layer of the manganese and oxygen that has a thickness between 143 and 300 nanometers. So what is that, a thousandth of a meter or a millionth of a meter? I don't know. Identical capacitors operating in the absence of the propylene carbonate stuff show dramatically reduced cycle stability. So if you don't coat it in the gel, they run for 2,000 to 8,000 cycles, and we're up to 200,000. Talk more about this when we get back in a second. We're going to talk more teeth. I'm going to talk more about this. Talk more about whatever comes into my mind. This is the Liam Scheff Show. You can support independent science journalism and my tooth repair by putting a couple dollars into the PayPal. $5 or $10 helps. Helps buy the groceries and the essential oils that I use to keep myself healthy. Thank you very much, essential oils. And, of course, the organic stuff. And I'm going to have to go get fish heads, roly-poly fish heads. Try to get those to be North Sea. Very, very, very far away from the Pacific. Thanks. Okay. You can buy my book, Official Stories, to read about all the other lies we were told. I'm getting wildly excited about this battery. Now, the drawbacks of the battery. Gold is expensive. These batteries will be expensive. Making nanometer thick gold will be fucking expensive. These batteries might cost $150 or $200, maybe $300, but they will never die. You'll not go through 200,000 cycles. It'll take you 30 years. Honestly, for a conservationist, for an ecologist, it's fucking amazing. That's amazing. It's amazing. Baby, I'm amazed. So every once in a while, people pull a rabbit out of a hat. Now, for any one of these experiments in which something goes well, you have 2,050 nuclear bombs dropped on the surface of the United States and the Pacific Atlantic Ocean and on mainland China, Eurasia, et cetera, Australia, everywhere else in the world. You've got nuclear bombs and nuclear waste all over the place. You've got 3 or 4 nuclear leaks, big ones in the United States, significant ones in the United States. You've got DDT and malathion and dioxin and 2,4-D and Agent Orange. You've got mercury in fillings. You've got mercury in vaccines, aluminum in vaccines, aluminum and barium in the sky. You've got X-rays used, and you've got chemotherapy, radioactive chemotherapy. You've got all of this crazy shit that we have. And then every once in a while, they'll come out with a real winner like this. Even though this is going to be a little bit toxic, it's still a winner. It really is. In terms of powering homes, in terms of keeping lights on for years at a time, with a small input to a power source and storing it on site. Fuck you, Tesla battery. This shit is awesome. You came out a little bit too soon, dude, Elon Musk. You should have waited. Your shit is not going to work. But this, 200,000 cycles? 200,000 cycles? They essentially put a battery in a baggie. You know, they insulate it against oxidation and brittleness. Fucking makes sense. But for every one of these, we got to go through the entire 20th century of Zyklon B. And I'm not a fan. And please don't tell me that Holocausts don't happen. They happen every day. So sick of that shit. And I'm so sick of people blaming the Jews for everything. All right, we'll get back to that in a second. This is the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV, Truth Frequency Radio. Please support independent journalism by thanking your radio host by buying his book, enjoying it. If you enjoy it, write a good review. If you don't enjoy it, thank you. If you don't enjoy it, write an honest review. But be fair. Be fair. Don't say, the denier doesn't believe. Denier of science. No, I'm not a denier of science. I'm a better reader of science than the 99.9% of people who believe that they're into science. I swear I am. I sit there and I critically read. I accept nothing for granted. I make sure the terms are defined all the way down the line. Don't you understand now why we do this? We're trying to define the terms because the mainstream doesn't bother. They don't want you to define the terms. Vaccine isn't a term. Mercury-containing liquid is. Aluminum-containing liquid is. You have to define your terms in the sciences. That's what I do here for you on the Liam Scheff Show. Welcome back. We're back from the break. We've just run all the way through. You're going to have to let me get a drink of water because I didn't even pause. All right, hold on a second. I'm just going to go get a drink. Hold on. All right, hold on. Got the bottle right here. Hold on. And? Okay, and we're back. A little more water. Back on the Liam Scheff Show, getting excited about a battery that can get 200,000 charges. Now, producing this battery is going to be expensive. You got to mine for the material. This just put the price of gold very high, by the way, because this is a gold battery. It is a gold nanowire battery. So the price of pure gold just went very high because the world, if this is true, and it looks to be true, and it works, and they've had a letter. It's not I'm not going to use the peer reviewed, but they haven't road tested it yet. But they road tested it in the lab. Let me read the rest of the article. Again, you're listening to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV, Truth Frequency Radio. It's not that we don't get excited by science here, so we know the difference between technology and science. The idea in science can be bad. The technology can still be good. Or the technology can be shit too. You have that too. Because frankly, vaccine technology is shit. It might be impressive to be able to make very thin, finely machined glass or plastic for these, for some of what goes on, or the very fine needles. I mean, that might be impressive in a way. But the technology of injecting poison into the body is shit. But other technologies might be very impressive, and still the rationale behind it might be stupefying, like wireless towers everywhere. It's impressive technology, but it's stupefying. It's not good for us. We're affected by electromagnetic signals, and we're all becoming stupid, disorganized, and a little bit broken. So, here is the report from the lab. UCY doctoral candidate Maya Lei Tai cycled the testing electrode up to 200,000 times over 3 months. Wow. So she cycled it, and then she emptied it. She cycled it, and then she emptied it. So how long did the electrode last? Now, let's say that they can build a battery out of this gold nanowire that can last as long as the new, let's say an Apple battery for one of their little things, a week, 3 or 4 days of intensely heavy use. Let's call it a week. Let's just round up in every way. Let's say you get a week out of a compiled battery. They put together a battery that can last a week. And the battery costs, let's say, $300. Why would the battery cost $300? Here's why. A week, and you can do it how many times? 200,000 times? Over 3 months without detecting any loss of capacity power and without fracturing any nanowires. Let's say you get 250,000, like a Toyota engine, or 300,000. And then it starts to, decline, but still it works. So let's say you get we'll stick with their number of 200,000, but they're talking about with any decline, 200,000 without any decline. Now let's look at that. Let's see. Let's say they're 50. Let's round down. Say they're 50 weeks in a year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 50 would go into 2,000. 5 into 2 is 4. 0. 50 into 200 is 4, 0, 0, 0. So 4, 0, 0, 0. So 4,000 times. Is that 4,000 weeks or 4,000 years? Sort of lost track of what I just did. In any case, it's much longer than any current battery works. Can't think if I just did weeks. I think I'm working in weeks, so I shouldn't think in years. So I think I just gave myself... 2,000. No, I divided by 50, which was meant to put it into years. Okay, so I just showed myself what 200,000 weeks divided by a year of weeks would be approximately. It would be approximately 4,000, which sounds intensely incredible. They're saying then that would be a fourth. Unless I'm doing this wrong, it would be a 4,000 year battery. If I'm doing it wrong, I apologize, and you can correct me. In any case. It's a battery that I think that's right. it's a battery that lasts a very, 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 very long time. So they can charge what they want for it as long as you don't lose it. And it will be made of gold, not gold, gold. It'll be made of gold in part, gold nanowires, surrounded by some very finely machined material. Now, do we have the oil to do this? Do we have the oil to extract? Do we have the oil to do all this kind of stuff? We have the oil to make some of them, and some of these will probably reach the market before emergency. Now, we know that Elon Musk started his lithium-ion bullshit too soon. Cadmium, lithium-ion. Cadmium, very expensive also, but also rare. But this gold battery is going to be worth its weight in, but gold, because it's going to be able to store electricity for a long, 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 long time. And they're going to be able to cycle it. So you're finally, with a battery like this, you're finally making renewable energy mean something. Because once you have the battery, you don't have to replace it every couple of years. And frankly, if it's sealed so well, it may resist all oxidation. I mean, they really might be onto something. I like this. Maya was playing around, and she coated this whole thing with a very thin layer, a gel layer, and started to cycle it, says her coworker, chair of UCI's chemistry department. She discovered that just by using the gel, she could cycle it hundreds of thousands of times without losing any capacity. Which was crazy, he said, because these things typically die in dramatic fashion after 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 cycles at most. Well, the coated electrode holds its shape much better, making it more reliable, said the postdoc, Thai, Maya, her name is. This research proves that a nanowire-based battery electrode can have a long lifetime, and we can make these kinds of batteries a reality. Yeah. Okay. So, far from just beating up on science, we will also celebrate something that is good. But now we got to fix Fukushima, and we got to fix this and that and the other thing. And it's a big, long story. And I got to fix my teeth, which hurt. Yeah. Yep. Hey, this is me with the thing in the thing I bought at the drugstore. So listen to this. Hi, this is Scheff from the Little Scheff Show. Yeah, I can't wear my teeth anymore. Okay. Well, at least my teeth are safe. Afraid I'm going to choke on this thing. Huh. Oh, well. Oh, well. Oh, welly, 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 well. Nothing's perfect. Nothing's perfect. Nothing indeed. So I now have to fit this gel thing into my mouth. And it's not a battery that'll last forever. And I'm a little dispirited. We talked about science. I think we had a really good first half of the show, and then we had a pretty good third quarter, and now we're in the fourth quarter, and now I'm going to read to you I'm just going to read it to you, what I have to do with my mouth thing. I had to buy a thing because I have to get an expensive mouth guard. In the meantime, I have to get something so I don't bite through my teeth and crack them. God. Oh, Boldrick. Great news. Your order of ProDental 3-in-1 mouth guards should arrive on your doorstep. It's here. Please view the fitting instructions video for the ProDental 3-in-1 mouth guards on our blah, 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 blah. Fuck. We recommend both watching the video and then the written fitting instructions enclosed in the package of 3-in-1 step by step and mounting to Fabada. Vast majority of those who have fitted these underheating the mouth. I got to boil this thing, putting a lot of pressure on my tongue. Well, mouth guard fabricated to make the mouth guard as thin as possible. All right, I got to boil this thing in water, and then follow the fitting instructions and close with your package when it arrives. Okay, I'll do that. Depending on your altitude above sea level. I know I went from the battery to my mouth thing, but I'm serious. I have a mouth thing here. I'm serious. I have a mouth thing, and I gotta put up my mouth. And then yeah. Okay. Yeah. Am I excited? Do I seem excited? Do I seem excited? Going to the dentist is something I put off for a long time. And there's a reason. It's because it's not fun. It's not only not fun, and I'm not adverse to things that aren't fun if they have value, but it's not only not fun, but it's scary and invasive. And somebody's poking in this terribly sensitive area of your body. They're just poking around and fucking with your mouth and, poking. I mean, the dentist the other day, what, did that hurt? Yeah, you're poking a metal poker. You're prodding my gums with metal. What planet shouldn't that hurt on? I mean, why should I be... No, it's fine. You know what you should do? Run it all. Why don't you pierce my upper palate while you're at it? I could use some sort of barbell through there. Of course it hurt. Of course it's sensitive. And it's scary. And I even say, why, how could you be in this business? Isn't this tough? Isn't this like just one step up from proctology? Like you got to stare in people's ghastly mouths all day. Most people have terrible diets. Their breath smells like, some sort of roadkill from Taco Bell, and you're just standing there. And remember in the old days when dentists would not wear gloves and shove their dirty fingers? Don't you remember that? Shoving their fingers in your mouth? I swear, you don't believe me. Some people remember, there was a period where they just would wash their hands. I'm serious. I'm not joking. In my lifetime, when I was going to the dentist in the beginning, they didn't have gloves. They were just like, okay, wash up. Or maybe that wasn't a dentist, now that I think about it. Anyway, science, the technology can be good and the science can be bad. We've covered that. We got some other stuff coming up on new shows. I'm going to be making a video about, oil. Oil is everything. The idea that we create our own reality with our mind, but when we walk outside, oil is actually everything, including the dental fixtures and everything that we have and do. Everything that we do is petroleum. Everything we do is petroleum. I want to do one on climate not being weather, because I've been reading the global warming, non-global warming pages, and I've learned from the global warming true believers that weather is not climate. So if it rains a lot, it's not that there's no drought or that things wouldn't be getting into a drought state. It's that climate change. It's real. And that if it snows a lot, it's not that global warming isn't real, it's that climate change is complicated. You don't understand. CO2 is the forcing... CO2 forcing is the driver. Unless of course it's not. Like HIV causes AIDS, unless of course you don't have any tests to test for HIV and you tell people that they're sick and then you give them drugs that kill them. And you say that anybody has AIDS who's black or gay, who has any kind of sickness at all. That could also be a possibility. You sort of have to open your mind a little instead of closing it. And fear is better than knowledge. I want to talk about this too in the upcoming shows. In science, fear is better than knowledge. So to come out and say something like HIV tests aren't, good or accurate, or to say that global warming, the model seems to be wrong, it's very difficult to entertain a notion that goes against a fear-based science. Because a fear-based science plays upon, frankly, and we're back to the beginning, a religious concept of fear. End of the world, cats and dogs sleeping together, fire from the sky. When you go up against a fear-based science, your rationality is already compromised. You're already thinking on half a cylinder or less. Because they get you right where you live. The Catholic Church figured out how to shame us all for thinking about sex a long, long time ago. Long, long time ago. I can still remember when we used to be able to have sex and not be shamed for it. Not really, because there was never a period in my life when they wouldn't shame you for it. They used to just shame you for it. They used to say, shame, shame. And then that was not liberal enough. That wasn't a nice thing to do. So they decided, well, we can't say that. So we say, have you been HIV tested? Because the government says that there's a new sex disease that kills gay people, so we better get a test. Is the test any good? Shame, shame, you don't believe in it. Shame, shame. So now they shame you for not believing. Going up against the fear-based science is very difficult, because if you go up and you say, look, there's, global warming isn't accurate. Climate change might be accurate, but, the idea that CO2 is the forcing driver, just more nonsense words, of change is contradicted by too much to ignore. CO2 seems to follow temperature change in the record. CO2 has been very high at times when it's been very cold, and very low at times that it's been very hot. It doesn't seem to have certainly it coincides at times, and then at other times it doesn't. So you kind of have to let it go, and then look for a larger, more complex set of, well, inputs, as they want to call them, inputs. It's difficult to go up against a fear. It's difficult to go up against a fear. It really is. To go up against a fear-based science means that you have to be so level-headed that you can think through your anxieties. And most people can't think through their anxieties. All they can do is act through their anxieties. They act. I'm anxious, what do I do? What do I do? And then you go to some portion of your brain that's been long programmed by, family and history and inheritance, and you do the thing that you do. My biting my jaw, for example, is the most lizard-brained example I can think of absolute, non-intellectually driven, inconsiderate, lower chakra response to stress. And I wish it would stop. And I might even go to a hypnotherapist, and we'll see if that works. I've been to the doctor, I've been to the mountains, you know that song. I don't have anything to lose, except, $50. But, I might. I don't have any problem going to a hypnotherapist. I just have to have somebody else watching. You will take off your clothes and pretend to be a chicken. Whenever you hear the word hot diggity do, you'll take off your clothes and go, "Bah, bah." God. It's very difficult to go up against a fear-based science, because if we believe that the climate is changing and that there are people who are in charge of managing that fear, and if we do what they say, they may be able to prevent that fear from happening, from coming true. So if we believe them and we buy their products, we may be able to get the fear to not manifest. Well, that's magical thinking. But anyway, I want to make a video about that, because we're rife with it. We're rife with fear-based science, with magical thinking in the sciences. If I go get an HIV test, I'm safer. Why? The test says, this test is not a test for HIV. It says, this test will not necessarily tell you if you're positive or negative. What the fuck are you doing? Why would you do it? It's totally psychological. And they'll tell you that. The HIV testing literature will tell you that it's mostly a psychological function, and you need to come back every few months to get a, benediction, benedictus, the good word of the, molesting priest, that you're allowed to go out and, not fear Beelzebub again, or whatever. Okay. Sorry, I'm just having to come down from my anxiety about dentistry, because I know this isn't the end. I know I'm going to have to get insurance to get some sort of what they call an appliance for my mouth to help me adjust myself from all the biting that I've done, and so on and so forth. Daytime appliance. For the nighttime appliance, they charge $550, and for the daytime appliance, they charge $3,500. So I got to pass on that daytime appliance right now. Patch the holes, deal with the emergency, get a mouth guard. Probably go through mouth guards like, like teenage girls at a party go through cupcakes. I'll just have one more. Hee. Probably bite through them, but at least I'll be biting through the, hopefully, BPA plastic and not my own bloody teeth. Sorry, I'm a little depressed. I depressed myself during this show. I thought I made some good points. Sorry, hope I'm not bumming you out too. Thousands of bucks. Damaged teeth. Let's get ENE news. Haven't looked there for a while. Fukushima ice wall could destroy reactor units, turn site into swamp. That sounds great. Oh, whoops. I mean the opposite. Nuclear expert. We've detected Fukushima ice wall could destroy reactor units, turn site into swamp. Risk of fractures, ground movement, building subsidence. Must be frozen for 200 years. Officials, high cliffs just beyond plant may become unstable. Government observable heaving and deformations possible. So that's not going to work. I said it a long time ago. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and everybody else in the world has to go over there, build a giant cavity around the thing, fill it with concrete and boron and lead, and pray. Right? What else can you do? And the fact that they're not doing it means that they want us, I don't know, I guess they want us all to die. I don't know. Maybe they're just like, hey, we don't have to work that hard at eugenics. Who knows? TV, North America will not be safe from Fukushima radiation if plants keep leaking. That's Korean TV. Animals suddenly died on West Coast right after 2011 disaster. Whole world noticed this strange phenomenon. Fatally high levels of radioactive materials entered ocean. That was a television program on Korean TV. Various news reports in California. Dead animals litter California beaches. Alarming phenomenon. Graveyard of washed up sea life from Alaska down to California. Influx of malnourished sea creatures. Experts, we're really starting to worry. Great. The animals are starving to death, covered in sores, stunted growth, and weak immune systems. Did I mention I didn't win any Pacific sardines? Nuclear expert, we've detected a lot of cases of gargantuanism in Fukushima. Gigantic beat. It's almost as big as the man trying to hold it. They're seeing more and more of this. People are reporting more and more of these abnormalities. TV, alarm over catastrophic leak at U.S. nuclear site. Emergency response underway. Surge in radioactive leakage after essentially blowing a hole in a massive tank containing the deadliest substance on Earth. What, Pauly Shore movies? TV, surge in babies being born with extra arms and legs after Fukushima. I feel officials know the cause is radiation, nurse says. Many are getting abortions to avoid inconvenient babies. High number of stillbirths, many people reporting cancers even far away from Fukushima. And on April 14th, nuclear reactor fears after huge earthquake strikes Japan. Plant operator is further looking into any possible damage. There was a big earthquake. Quake measured at highest possible level on Japan's intensity scale. Prime Minister of Japan, we intend to do utmost to grasp the situation. Official extent of damage still unclear. Top official over April 12th, 2016. Over 60 million Japanese irradiated by Fukushima. 50,000 square kilometers of Japan highly contaminated. Many millions need to be evacuated. Not a coffee enema evacuated. Government has decided to sacrifice them. It's a serious crime. TV report more than 70% of country contaminated by radiation. Nuclear expert in Fukushima, April 11th. People's feet turned black for years because radiation so high. Every time I turned around, I saw someone who had radiation damage, hair falling out, coughing up blood, bodies covered with boils. Officials kept doctors from telling the truth. The public was being brainwashed. Well, that's about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which just means that they cover it up. They cover it up, Jim. They cover it up, damn it. And they always will. There's nothing you can do about it. So I'm getting into aquaponics. How about you? I think that permaculture is great. I just think that you have to have a lot of people and a reasonable amount of land. So I'm now thinking more about manageable production for small groups. And I'm looking at aquaponics, and with improving batteries, improving wind power. It's seeming like maybe there's a future there for those who want to get ahead of the crashing Fukushima wave that's coming to a shore near you and invest in a little training, a little know-how, a little elbow grease, a little mechanical skill. We have to become the technicians of the 21st century. We're not going to be able to rely on people far away through mail order to do it for us. Speed of contact over long distance will slow down and get slower and slower. So I think we have to become the experts. And we have to know what our expertise is going to be in. And if it's battery maintenance, then it is. Certainly we're not going to be able to make gold-plated gel suffused nano batteries at home. So we're going to have to make those in larger industry while we can. And maybe some of that will last. Maybe efficiency will begin at some point to catch up to use, but we're not even close. I mean, efficiency is 1%, Use is at 99. We're not smart. It'd be nice if it were 50-50, but it's not. It'd be nice if use were 20 and efficiency were 80, wouldn't it? Boy, we'd be banking for the future, but we don't do that either. This has been the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV, Truth Frequency Radio. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you learned a thing or two. Hope you enjoyed the cursing. It was free and gratis. The research, however, comes at a cost. If you want to understand more about the sciences and how they work, where the lies are told, you can buy my book, Official Stories. I'm going to be making new videos this week to be posting on the various video sites for the people who enjoy watching those. I get so many more hits on Facebook than I do on YouTube. It's like my YouTube channel doesn't exist, and then Facebook can get thousands, and YouTube can get hundreds or a couple hundred. It seems to me to be ridiculous. YouTube seems to be there for the it's just anything that's intensely inflammatory or that's already incredibly well known gets views, and I seem to be sort of shit out luck on both counts, because what I'm saying is, think critically, read, and that's just not exciting enough for YouTube. But you can support my work by putting a couple dollars into PayPal or by buying Official Stories. Remember, science isn't truth. Science is an idea. Engineering isn't truth. Engineering is something that makes something real into our reality. Between science and engineering, at no point do you encounter truth. It's the most important thing that you can understand about science. And I'll say it again and again. Thanks very much for listening. See you next time.